Some games never truly end, especially the ones played with the heart. Welcome to Tangled Games. Part 5. The deeply moving final installment in K.Leigh's dating games series. A love story that has taken listeners on a roller coaster of passion, heartbreak, and healing. And now, everything comes full circle. After enduring lies, longing, and the pressures of fame and fear, Harley and Easton have finally found their way back to each other. But love real. Lasting love isn't just about the grand gestures. It's about the quiet moments, the unseen battles, and the promises you make when no one's watching. In this emotionally rich finale, the story dives into what happens after the fairy tale, exploring themes of trust, commitment, growth, and enduring connection. K.Leigh masterfully brings closure to a romance that has captivated readers and listeners alike with its perfect blend of heart, heat, and honesty. If you've laughed, cried, and fallen in love with Harley and Easton along the way, this audiobook will leave you deeply satisfied and maybe reaching for a tissue or two. So press play and join them one last time. Because when it comes to love, the most beautiful chapters are often the ones written at the end. Chapter 32. Nora. A breeze blows a few tendrils of high R around my face as I stare at the miles and miles of glistening, blue ocean below me. I've never walked this close to the edge of Anderson's property before, choosing to remain at a safe distance. But now I'm drawn to the swirling depths. Wonder how it would feel if I were able to summon up the courage to leap. I imagine I'd feel free again, then nothing. What I wouldn't give to feel nothing. To be numb, but I'd never be able to do that. Not only because of Little Pickle, but also because Lieutenant O'Kelly lingers nearby, watching my every move, as if I pose a danger to myself. After the way I destroyed the bathroom in Paris, I suppose everyone has good reason to think I do. My lady. A voice cuts through over the ocean waves crashing below. I turn around, facing the butler. I can't even remember his name. Charles, Richard. It probably won't matter much longer anyway. Her Majesty is here and requested an audience. I close my eyes, drawing in a steadying breath. The last person I want to see is that woman, who I'm sure believes every single word my mother said. If you're not up for it, O'Kelly says, expression awash in concern. It touches me that, even though he's employed by the monarchy, he still shows loyalty to me first. Thank you, Killian. But I'll be fine. Are you sure I'm not sure about anything right now? I smile sadly, then follow the butler out of the gardens and into the house, O'Kelly remaining only a few steps behind me at all times. As I walk down the corridors, it feels like all the portraits stare at me as they would a condemned prisoner heading to her execution, with pity, with disgust, with just plain revulsion. From the first time I stepped inside this house, I always felt they were judging me, silently thinking I didn't deserve to be here, that I'd never measure up. They were right, Ms. Nora Tremblay, the butler announces. I give O'Kelly one more reassuring smile before stepping into the study. The space is mostly dark, dust from the hundreds of books clinging to the air. If it weren't located in this house that's more like a prison, I might like this room. I focus on where Queen Veronica currently sits at a table by the window, a chessboard resting on it. She doesn't get up when I walk in, simply stares at me with those cold, judgmental eyes. Your Majesty, I say with an awkward curtsy. It may be the last one I ever do. It's probably why she's here. To break the news so Anderson doesn't have to look into my eyes and tell me we gave it a shot. But it just didn't work out. That he had to make a choice between the crown and me. That as future king, he will always have to choose the crown. Sit, Nora, she says in an even tone, gesturing to the chair across from her. There's a part of me that wants to remain standing, one final act of defiance. But there's nothing left. I do as she requests, peering at her with a vacant expression. Nothing she says can hurt me. I don't think anything can now. We sit in silence for several moments. It once unnerved me. Not anymore. Now I welcome it. I'm sure you know why I'm here, she begins. It's not to discuss who I favor in the upcoming derby. She gives me a reproachful glare, her distaste for my sarcasm obvious. You've put this family in a difficult position. I believe that honor should be given to my mother. Perhaps. She waves her hand at the chessboard. Do you play? I know the basics. Very well. She grabs 2 pawns, one black and one white. Closing her hands around them, she hides them behind her back and mixes them up. When she extends her hands back toward me, I tap her left one. She opens it, revealing black in her palm. I take the black pawn and return it to the board, awaiting her first move. She pushes one of her pawns forward 2 squares, which I also do when it's my turn. Regardless of the veracity of your mother's claims, she continues, her focus mostly on the board. Her version of events is out there, and there's only one person who can clear your name in this so-called kangaroo court that appears to have convened in this country. Who's that, I ask cautiously after taking my turn, unsure how much she knows about that night. According to Anderson, his father ordered Creed to keep the truth a secret from everyone, including Anderson himself. Until a year ago, he had no recollection of his involvement in the crash due to several moments of temporary blindness that caused him to swerve the car he drove into the wrong lane, forcing Hunter and me off the road. It wasn't until Creed realized who I was that he finally came clean to Anderson. But I'm still not sure how many people Anderson has shared the truth with, apart from Esme, and, of course, Hunter's parents when he confessed his involvement to them. But being the kind, forgiving people they are, they never went public with it. We both know who that is, Ms. Tremblay. She pins me with a glare before returning her attention to the board. I wasn't involved in the initial aftermath. Following Ms. Davies' death, Gabriel wasn't in a good spot, so my son handled the situation as best he could with as minimal blowback on the royal family as possible. He kept his involvement quiet. Yes, there was a referendum vote that year, as well. Much like now. Granted, it didn't have as much support as it does this year. But still, it was a risk we couldn't afford. And now we find ourselves in the unique situation where clearing your name would entail throwing one of our own to the wolves. And despite the opportunity this life has afforded him, I have no doubt Gabriel would happily sacrifice himself for you. I nod. No question in my mind he'd do just that. That he's probably contemplating doing it at this very moment. Unfortunately, doing so would complicate matters. Not only will the people of this country essentially learn that the royal family was involved in covering up a crime 7 years ago, but we also have an extradition treaty with the United States, which would require us to hand Gabriel over if the district attorney decided to charge him with any crime in connection with his arguably reckless driving that resulted in the death of 2 people. I'm not certain of the penalties for manslaughter in New York, but I assume it will most certainly include prison time. Prison, I squeak out, my mouth growing dry. That thought hadn't even crossed my mind. It was 7 years ago. Surely, any statute of limitations has run out. Unfortunately, it hasn't. While the statute of limitations would generally be 5 years, in many jurisdictions, it's suspended during any period the alleged offender isn't physically present in the state. I look up from the chessboard, my breathing growing shallow as dread settles deep in my stomach. You're most likely doing the math in your head right now, she remarks, making her next move with confidence and determination, her white pieces beginning to circle my king like a shark. But I still have a few moves up my sleeve, I hope. He hasn't been in New York for a total of 5 years. I murmur, precisely. So, if he were to come forward, I trail off, shaking my head. Isn't there some sort of immunity to some extent? Yes. As you should have learned during your training, the royal family does enjoy some immunity, But there's no diplomatic immunity for causing a car accident and fleeing the scene of a crime. It's irrelevant that he may have also saved a life that night. In the eyes of the law, he took a life. Technically, two. But his MS, I argue, grasping at straws. He had temporary blindness. That must be a defense. It's possible, but not a guarantee. That would be up to the judge or jury to decide, who can very well decide that Anderson was negligent in getting behind the wheel in the first place upon leaving the hospital where his girlfriend had just died. Even went so far as to threaten and assault his chief protection officer in order to do so. I study the board, trying to strategize several moves ahead on both our parts, searching for a way out of this corner I seem to be stuck in. I can tell you His Majesty and the Privy Council are having the same discussion with Prince Gabriel as we speak, and they're also telling him the choice he has to make. And what's that? The one we must make every day of our lives, between our wants and our country's needs. He can either love you or love his country, but it appears he can't do both. She leans closer. Do you really want to be the reason he throws away everything he's worked so hard for? I rest my elbows on the table, despite my etiquette training that I shouldn't, and dig my hands through my hair, searching for an alternative, both in life and on this board. Do you really want to be forever remembered as the woman who destroyed Prince Gabriel's career? She leans closer. Who forced his hand? Who sent him to prison? Because if he comes forward with the truth of that night, there's a strong likelihood of that happening. Not to mention, this entire monarchy could become ancient history. She pauses, lifting her eyes to mine. Unless, yes, I press, hope building inside me that she has another way out of this mess, an option that will allow me to keep Anderson and clear my name. What's the sportsmanlike thing to do when there's no path to victory in chess? I blink, my throat tightening as I look between her and the board where she has my king caged in with no possible way of winning. From the moment I heard my mother's interview, saw the vitriol spewed against me online and in protests here in Belmont, I feared this was how it would end. But now that it's here, that reality has sunk in, that there's no way to untangle myself from this spider's web. It pains me in a way I didn't think possible. Of course, my original offer from several weeks ago still stands. The royal family takes care of its obligations. She glances at my stomach before returning her eyes to mine. In the game of chess, my darling girl, sometimes you have to sacrifice your queen in order to save the king. I blink, staring past her, the room feeling like it's closing in on me. When I was younger, I had a dog named Max, a goofy golden retriever. After my father died, Max was always by my side, offering me the support and compassion my mother refused to bestow upon me. When Max got sick several years later, it felt like I was losing my dad all over again. At least with Max, I had time to prepare. I was able to have a few good days with him before the vet came to our house to put him to sleep. At the time, I thought it would make things easier. It didn't. It doesn't matter how much you prepare for an inevitability. When you reach that point and have no choice but to say goodbye to someone you love and cherish, it rips you to shreds, just like this is ripping me to shreds right now. My hand trembles as I gradually bring it toward my king, placing my pointer finger on top of it. The instant I do, I know there's no going back. I've touched the piece, so I have to play it. Anywhere I move will eventually put me in check, so I make the only move I can. My eyes trained on hers, I carefully place my king on its side. Tears stream down my cheeks, but Queen Veronica doesn't seem affected in the least by the fact that she's all but asked me to rip out my heart and present it to her on a golden platter. I resign. I manage to choke out. Then I push back from the table, keeping my head lowered as I storm out of the room, not so much as looking back to curtsy. I have no obligation to do so now. Chapter 33. Anderson weariness fills me as I trudge through the halls of my residence after what felt like a marathon meeting with my father and the Privy Council. No matter what I proposed in order to dig the royal family out of the mess Nora's mother created, it still boiled down to the same thing: Nora or my country. I can't have both. If I choose Nora, come forward with concrete proof of her mother's lies, I'll put my freedom at risk, which would eventually fall back on the monarchy for covering up the death of a young man and his unborn child. But if I choose the monarchy, I lose part of who I am. I'll lose my heart. As I step into the formal living room of our private quarters, I have no idea what I'll walk into. No idea what choice to make. No idea if Nora will even still be here, or if she's already been forced out during my absence. My decision made for me. Thankfully, that's not the case. A lone light illuminating her on the couch, back straight, shoulders squared, legs at an angle and crossed at the ankle, just like she was trained. Then I noticed the suitcase beside her, the blue tanzanite ring sitting on the side table. My heart squeezes, throat closing up. I contemplated leaving a few hours ago, she says flatly. But I thought I owed it to you to say goodbye in person. I assume someone updated you on, well, everything. Your grandmother came to see me. She stands. We played chess. Chess? Yes. Chess. But even before her visit, I knew how this would end. I think I've known for a while but was too stubborn to admit it. She smiles sadly. I think we both were. It doesn't have to. I plead, stepping toward her. We'll figure out a different way. In chess, you can't just look one move ahead. You plan for the next 4 or 5. If we just do that, there is no move. Anders, someone must be realistic here. Someone has to admit it's over. That it's been over since that plane touched down. She laughs under her breath. It's been a while since I've played chess. A small smile tugs on her lips as she swipes away a few tears. Hunter loved to play. He's the one who taught me. Do you want to know why he loved the game so much? Because it involves strategy? Yes. But that's not the only reason. It's because it mimics life. Like you said, it's not about making a decision based on what's in front of you at this very moment, but on things you can foresee happening down the road. Because of that, I know this is the only option. It doesn't have to be. I clutch her arms, clinging onto the last shred of hope. Chess is a game of absolutes. How you use those absolutes to dominate the board is where the strategy comes in. But no matter how you use those rules to your advantage, one thing remains absolutely certain. And what's that? I ask softly. She peers up at me through tear-filled eyes. You can't sacrifice your king and still win the match. Dropping my hold on her, I hang my head, the ache in my chest excruciating. It doesn't matter that I've been at war with my diagnosis lately, torn between not wanting to saddle Nora with a husband who will become increasingly dependent on other people every day and selfishly wanting to keep her with me. It's one thing to end things on our own terms. It's another when that decision is made for us. She touches my cheek, pulling my eyes to hers. But you can sacrifice your queen to save the king. I shake my head, wanting to tell her again it doesn't have to be this way. But it does. We both know it. I don't want to lose you. I choke out. And I don't want to lose you. But this is the only move we have left. We gave it a shot. Anders, I thought our love would be strong enough. We both need to face the cruel reality that it isn't. At least not to survive your world. If we don't do this, if we don't walk away now, there will be nothing left of either of us to salvage. I knead at my chest in an effort to stop the pain, but I doubt anything ever will. Returning my gaze to hers, I cup her cheeks in my firm grasp. You will always own my heart. I declare passionately, always. And you will always own mine. She squeaks out, always. I seal my mouth over hers, pouring everything I have into the kiss. All my anger, all my sorrow, all my fears, all my love. She grips me tighter, desperation and anguish consuming her, consuming me. I'm not sure what has my tears falling more steadily, that this is goodbye, or because I'm not fighting harder for her. I now understand why my mother pushed people away after her diagnosis. It wasn't selfish, it was selfless. She didn't want to burden those she loved with taking care of her. That's what I'm doing now, too. At least that's what I try to convince myself. When she pulls away and peers into my eyes, I nearly beg her not to go. I hate the idea of not waking up to those eyes every day. But I hate what she'd miss out on more. After all the grief I caused her, after everything I took from her, she deserves a normal life. She'll never have that with me. I clear my throat. What are you doing about your flight, I ask, switching into problem-solver mode, doing my best to keep my emotions at bay. Your grandmother arranged for me to use the jet one last time. Killian. Oh, Kelly will accompany me. He'll make sure I reach my destination safely. Do you want me to come with you? Too, I ask before I stop to consider the ramifications. Even if she agrees, I won't be allowed. As the Privy Council instructed, it's imperative I not be seen with her. Not if we stand a chance to keep the monarchy intact. I don't think that's a good idea. Nora replies. The best thing for us is a clean break. Why do I get the feeling there's nothing clean about this? She lifts her glossy eyes back to mine, tears threatening to escape once more. Because there isn't. This is as messy and dirty as can be, but I don't see any other option. Do you? Her voice carries a twinge of hope. I avert my gaze. I don't. Spine straight. She resecures the mask she wore for years. The same mask she wore when we met. The one I chipped away at. And the one I forced her to put back on when I introduced her to this world. I'll keep you updated on Little Pickle. Despite everything, I'd still like you to be in his life. At least as much as you're able. He won't have to know who you are. I mean, he'll know who you are, but not what you are, if that makes sense. I arch a brow. Sadness covers her expression as she rests her hand on her stomach. Just a feeling I have. When she first told me she was pregnant, I was beyond excited about the prospect of having a child. But I sensed an unease within her, a fear. I couldn't quite explain it, but for several weeks, it felt like she purposefully avoided any reminder that she was pregnant, not even touching her stomach. Probably out of fear she'd get attached to this life growing inside only for it to be taken away. But lately, she's gotten over that fear. If she can get over hers, why can't I get over mine? I'd like that. I tell her. If it's not too difficult, I'd like to be there when he's born. Maybe schedule a few trips out there for some of your appointments. As long as it won't interfere with your schedule, you're still his father. I won't cut you off just because we didn't work out. She blows out a choked laugh, looking at the ceiling. Although if you come to visit one day with a new wife you were forced to marry just to produce a real heir, I may have a complete breakdown. I frame her face in my hands so she can see the truth behind my words. My fingers dig into her skin, an intensity buzzing through me as a new wave of tears falls down my cheeks. Our child will always be a real heir. I rest my forehead on hers, and you will always be my queen. My voice cracks as I struggle to speak through the agony enveloping me, mind, body, and soul. And you will always be my king. I press my lips against hers, torturing myself with one last kiss, one last taste of her, one last moment of happiness. It reminds me of the last time I kissed her before telling her about my involvement in the crash that cost her everything. I knew once I did, there would be no turning back. But like Esme so succinctly put it back then, I was torn between having a clear conscience and a broken heart, despite knowing I could have very well kept it to myself the rest of my life. I told Nora the truth. She deserved to know, just like she now deserves to be free of the cage this life has trapped her in. She deserves to fly, and she can't do that with me. To keep my conscience clear, I break my heart and let her go. Chapter 34. Nora. The airplane jostles as I stare out the window, the familiar skyline of Manhattan lit up at night zooming by. The engines roar, the plane gradually slowing down at the end of the runway before turning and taxiing toward the fixed base operations office, where I'll disembark and leave this life behind. Ready? Ma'am. Lieutenant O'Kelly walks up to me from his seat toward the front of the plane, the crew bustling around to prepare the cabin to return to Belmont. Minus one passenger. I nod, forcing a smile. Despite having 8 hours to prepare for my return to New York, now that I'm here, it's more difficult than I imagined. I once looked forward to coming home after a long time away. Now I fear anywhere I go in the city will remind me of Anderson. Then again, I have a feeling I'll find pieces of Anderson no matter where I go. O'Kelly helps me to my feet, following me down the aisle, the cabin crew bowing and curtsying as I pass. It strikes me as odd. After everything my mother said in that interview, I assumed they'd be happy to see me go. They certainly wouldn't show me any sort of respect or deference. Instead, many of them look at me with sadness. When I reach the door, I hold on to the railing and take a deep breath, drawing in the city air for the first time in months. It's still the same briny sea air mixed with fuel and something distinctly New York, but it feels different. I feel different. I descend the steps for the last time and allow O'Kelly to lead me into the main office, where a customs officer greets us. "Passport, please." I hand it to the woman. She cross-references the photo to make sure it matches. "What was your purpose for your trip abroad?" I part my lips, wishing she didn't have to ask that question. "She was previously engaged to the Crown Prince of Belmont," O'Kelly interjects, saving me from having to answer. The woman looks at him before scrutinizing me, realization kicking in. "Oh, of course. I apologize. I didn't initially recognize you. It's okay." After she types a few more things into her computer, she returns my passport. "Welcome home." I wish this place felt like home, but it doesn't. I'm not sure anywhere will ever feel like home again. "Why did you go through customs just to essentially walk me to catch a cab?" I ask O'Kelly as he steers me through the FBO office, where a few well-dressed men wait for their private jet or charter to take off. I guess I should be grateful Queen Veronica showed me a sliver of kindness toward the end and arranged my use of the jet. Otherwise, I would have not only had to attempt to get through the Belmont airport with no one recognizing me, but here too. At least this way, I don't have to worry about people coming up to me and accusing me of being a murderer, because I promised His Highness I would make sure you arrived home safely. Not just in New York, so I'll be accompanying you to your final destination. When we step out of the small terminal building, a black SUV already waits. O'Kelly opens the back passenger door for me, helping me in. Then he runs around and slides in beside me. "Do you want to stay in the Upper West Side apartment? His Highness wanted me to tell you that he'll be signing it over to you once the lawyers draw up the paperwork, and not to concern yourself with the property taxes or any other expenses. He'll cover those too. Tell him that's generous, but I can't go back there. He can sell it if he wants. I've already reached out to my friends to tell them I'm coming home. I'll be staying with Izzy in Gramercy Park while I figure out where to go from here. Are you sure it's safe? You're not just recognizable in Belmont, but also across the world. Especially here. Her husband is Asher York. I know who he is," he says with a laugh. "The rock star. Pretty sure you'd have to be living under a rock to not know who Asher York is." "Exactly. So their house has adequate security. I'll be fine there." "Okay." He meets the driver's gaze in the rearview mirror, giving him a nod. During the drive from JFK and into the heart of Manhattan, I keep my eyes trained out the window. I should find comfort in the fact that I'm minutes away from seeing the friends I've missed these past 6 weeks, 2 of whom are on the brink of giving birth. But I didn't expect the first time I returned to be so permanent. After a traffic-filled drive that takes over an hour, despite only being 20 miles away, The SUV finally pulls up in front of Izzy and Asher's townhouse. I glance up at the 5-story brownstone a block away from the exclusive, private park in Manhattan. Lieutenant O'Kelly slides out of the SUV and heads to my side, helping me step down onto the sidewalk. After retrieving my small suitcase, he carries it up the front steps for me, then turns to face me. It's sad to think that my entire life can fit into just one suitcase. I once marveled at people who got rid of most of their belongings and decided to live more of a nomadic lifestyle, never staying in one place long enough to set down roots. Now the idea is quite appealing. It was an honor. Ma'am, O'Kelly says stoically. Thank you. This entire ordeal would have sucked if I didn't have you helping me. K.Leigh. He grits a smile and is about to retreat when he stops, lifting his gaze to mine. Can I give you a hug? Tears well in my eyes once more and I nod. He wraps his arms around me, my body tiny compared to his huge bulk. You'll always be a princess to me. I draw in a breath, allowing myself to find a hint of comfort in his words. Thank you. He pulls back, keeping me at arm's length as he stares intently into my eyes. And I think once the dust settles and the noise dies down, you'll find most people feel the same way. The loudest voice in the room is seldom the wisest, and is often the most scared. Just some food for thought. He holds my gaze, then nods, making his way down the steps. Just before getting into the SUV, he bows his head. My lady. Then he climbs into the car. I expect them to drive away, but they don't. Instead, he keeps his eyes trained on me, which I imagine he'll do until he sees me disappear into Izzy's house. Turning toward the keypad, I enter the code and the door buzzes, granting me entry. I walk into the small foyer, setting my suitcase by the entryway table, the place filled with light. I close the door behind me, then look out the window, watching as the last tie to my life in Belmont drives off. Nora Izzy's voice carries from the top of the stairs. I turn toward the staircase to see Izzy, Evie, and Chloe standing there. Welcome home, she says with a sad smile. I make my way up the stairs and into their outstretched arms. I burst into tears. All the emotions I've kept to myself since walking away from Anderson one last time washing over me. They don't ask me if I'm sure I did the right thing. Don't try to goad me into talking about my mother. Don't bring up anything that would make my heart splinter even more than it already is. They just hold me and let me get it all out, just like any loyal friends would. Chapter 35. Anderson. I stare at the empty chair beside me in the formal dining room of my residence, while Lieutenant Colonel Bridge reviews my agenda for the day. I somehow manage to nod when it's expected, but my attention is elsewhere. It's focused on the ghost of the woman who once sat in that chair every morning. I knew I'd miss her when she left, but I didn't expect to feel her everywhere in this house. Her laughter still echoes in the halls. Her smile still tortures me every time I close my eyes. Her perfume still permeates the sheets of the bed we once shared, despite the fact the household staff changes them regularly. When the room falls silent, I snap out of my daze, bringing my attention back to Bridge. Thank you, I say, assuming he's done telling me where my presence will be required today. A trained monkey once more. I simply go through the motions and do what I'm told, like I did when I silently stood by as the royal household made an official statement, claiming Nora left voluntarily in response to her mother's interview. As is always the case, they left out any indication of the role they played in forcing her out, remaining neutral instead. At least I didn't have to stand by my father's side as he shared this with the press. But in the weeks since, the media has certainly been hounding me, asking for a statement. No longer prone to shun the rules, I give them the response ingrained into my subconscious at this point. No comment. Of course, sir. Bridge stands from his chair, but doesn't bow or retreat. What is it, I ask? Sensing his hesitation. It's just, Carly Hart's people reached out to see if you were interested in appearing on the morning broadcast at some point to give your own insight into Ms. Tremblay. He raises a single brow. To possibly counter what Dr. Harcourt claimed. I stare at him for a beat, my expression impassive. You know as well as I do, it's against protocol for the royal family to give an interview, especially when it would involve information that directly contradicts a statement made by the royal household. That's true, and I'd probably be fired if anyone knew I'd brought it to your attention, but I thought perhaps you'd want to make up your own mind about this. I'm not allowed to make up my own mind, I say evenly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to enjoy my breakfast in peace. He doesn't move. Did you not hear me? You're dismissed. He opens his mouth, then snaps it shut, straightening. What I growl. With all due respect, sir, I thought you'd fight harder for her. Then he bows. Your Highness. He spins on his heels, hurrying from the room. I check my appearance in the mirror, making sure my medals are lined up perfectly. Nothing out of place on my military dress uniform, my required outfit for the state dinner tonight. I've always hated these things, being forced to make small talk, feigning interest in things like polo and yachting, pretending my heart isn't still in pieces, but I particularly hate the idea of being required to attend. Considering this event is the first step in the royal household's plan to rekindle any appearance of romance between Caroline DeVries and myself. And like the puppet I am, I've gone along with it, despite my conscience screaming at me to fight. No thanks to Bridges' statement at breakfast this morning that's played on repeat all day. I thought you'd fight harder for her. Hell, I didn't fight at all. At the first sign of attack, I sacrificed my queen. But I had to. Didn't I? Are you ready? Sir Creed peeks his head into the dressing room of the private quarters where I spent my adolescent years. I squeeze my eyes shut, wishing I could rewind the clock to the day I looked up from my coffee at a downtown Chicago diner and saw Nora for the first time. To the freedom we felt when we scaled a fence and explored a rundown drive-in. To the way the wind whipped her hair around her face as I drove with the top down on the Wrangler. To when I was still happy. To before this life stole that from us. Are you okay? Creed asks. I open my eyes, pinning him with a glare as I start to push past him. I'm fine. You're such a bloody liar. Anders. He grinds out, grabbing my arm, yanking me to a stop. If it were anyone else, he'd be fired on the spot for his severe break in protocol. But we've always been friends first. Nothing about this is fine. The sooner you stop pretending I told you, I tear my arm from his, my eyes on fire. I don't want to talk about it. He leans into me, not letting me ignore this conversation any longer. Oh, I know what you've said, but I've also heard what you don't say. All week, he's attempted to get me to open up about what happened between Nora and me. And all week, I've insisted I'm fine. That our hand was forced and the only option was for her to leave. You miss her. I glower at him, chest heaving, jaw tight. Then I throw up my hands. Of course I miss her. Then why are you still here? Better yet, why isn't she? You know why. This was the only way. He studies me for a beat. Bullshit. Anders. That's complete bullshit and you know it. Are you really going to stand there and have me believe the only possible way out of this was to do nothing, to simply let her walk away without a fight? Fuck you. Creed smirks. You're not my type, mate. Well, I'm sorry if I'm a bit wary of listening to relationship advice from someone who hasn't been in one since you dicked over my sister. He pinches his lips into a tight line, as always happens when I bring up what went on between my sister and him, which is why I don't mention it often. You know damn well that's not the case. I never made your sister a promise I had no intention of fulfilling. Not like you did with Nora. Going back on a promise, not standing up for what you believe in. That doesn't sound like the Anders I know. I grind my teeth, my jaw ticking in an attempt to keep my emotions in check. But something inside of me snaps. Everything I've kept from Creed for months burns like lava as it flows from me. That's because the Anders you knew is dead. Creed. The Anders you knew used to be able to run, could fly a fucking helicopter, could fire a rifle and hit a target 300 meters away. Now I can barely even hold the thing steady, and that's on a good day. My legs and hips are constantly sore from just walking. Oh, and this morning I had to sit down to take a bloody piss because I was so damn dizzy. So excuse me if you don't think I'm the same Anders. I'm not. The sooner you wrap your head around that fact, the easier it'll be when part of your job assignment is cleaning up my shit and piss. You can stand there and judge me for not doing enough to keep Nora here, like everyone around me seems to think. But at least I saved her from spending the rest of her life married to a goddamn cripple. I slink to a nearby chair, collapsing into it, fighting against another dizzy spell. They seem to be happening more and more lately, especially since Nora left. I lower my voice, sounding defeated. I sacrificed my happiness so she can have a chance at being happy, so she could be free. Anders. Creed begins, slowly walking toward me and sitting in the chair beside mine. You don't believe that, do you? Do you honestly think she wouldn't be happy with you simply because you don't live up to this ideal of perfection you have in your mind? You don't know what it's like, Creed, to want to make love to your fiancé and aren't able to feel like half a man, not even to feel. I shake my head, gradually lifting my gaze to his, to feel like a fucking burden. I won't say I know what you're going through, because I don't. I have no idea what it's like to constantly have my body betray me, but I do know that Nora doesn't care about that. Hell, she found it in her heart to forgive you even after everything you took from her. That's how deep her love for you runs. Anders. She doesn't care if you'll be stuck in a wheelchair one day. He licks his lips, studying me for a beat. Do you remember your last night together in Los Angeles after driving Route 66? How you asked me to arrange a private showing at the drive-in? I swallow hard. I do. And what movie did you ask they show? What movie was absolutely non-negotiable in your mind? An affair to remember, I say grudgingly, sensing what he's getting at. I'd originally requested that movie because the main characters fell in love while traveling. Much like Nora and me, they came from different worlds, had other commitments and obligations. But regardless of all the complications, they fought to make their dreams a reality. Nicky Ferrante even promised to start painting again, despite destroying all his previous work because it didn't meet the level of perfection he'd hoped to attain. Those were the lengths he was willing to go to in order to pursue his dream of being with Terry McKay. But now, the story has a deeper meaning than just two strangers falling in love aboard an ocean liner. In the final scene, Creed continues, when Nicky Ferrante sees Terry McKay and finally realizes why she doesn't get up from the couch, does he simply shrug and say, "Well, it's been swell, but have a nice life, you daft cripple"? I chuckle, grateful for the break in tension. No. But what? This is different, he taunts, knowing precisely what my argument will be. A few of the details might be, but the gist of it remains true here. Anders. He didn't care she couldn't walk, didn't care she was stuck in a wheelchair, that she might be a burden in some people's minds. What did she tell him, Creed? I beg, the mere thought of those words like a knife to my chest. What did she say? He repeats, firmer. I blow out a long breath. If you can paint, I can walk. Exactly. What happened the night of that accident was a tragedy. But that's precisely what it was. An accident. You weren't drinking. You had what we now know was an MS flare-up, which caused you to momentarily lose your vision. I can't guarantee how the police will respond, but I'd be hard-pressed to believe they'll hold you accountable when any accident is involuntary. when you didn't even know you'd caused that crash until a year ago. So, for the love of Christ, stop moping around here because some crusty old men told you to. Do you remember what happened the last time you stopped doing things the old way? I blink, not answering. People fell in love with Nora. The entire country went nuts over the idea of you two together. You may think your hands are tied, but I have no doubt if you broke a few more rules. When he narrows his gaze, there's no question he's referring to sitting down for the interview with Carly Hart. They'll do so all over again. Everyone loves a story of redemption and forgiveness, and that's certainly what yours is. Sometimes you have to break a few rules to break new ground. It worked before. It can work again. I look straight ahead, mentally going through everything that's transpired since I left New York. The engagement leak, being reminded of the laws of succession and the Royal Marriages Act, Nora agreeing to marry me in 2 months instead of next year, as we'd planned, Nora going through all her princess training without a single argument, rekindling our romance, even with everything else going on, taking her to Paris, where it all fell apart. But despite it all, there's no question my happiest times involved Nora, making love to her at night after a long day of work, waking up to her every morning, photographing her on the balcony of our hotel. She's repeatedly told me she doesn't care about my diagnosis, that she fell in love with my heart, not the body holding it. Hell, she's shown that to be true. So why was I so eager to throw it all away, especially after everything she gave up for me? The argument we had in the garden after I missed her first doctor appointment replays in my mind. She'd asked me what I sacrificed in order to be with her. To my utter dismay, the answer was nothing. It still is, but it no longer has to be. A revitalized energy coursing through me. I jump up. For the first time in ages, I don't waver on my feet. Don't have to hold on to some nearby piece of furniture to steady myself. With determined strides, I stalk into the hallway, Creed close behind. As I turn the corner, I stop abruptly when I see my grandmother walking toward me. "Your Majesty," Creed says, bowing. I mirror his greeting and movement. Heading somewhere, she asks, holding her head high, her shoulders squared, posture exuding the same distinction and poise one would associate with her title. I stammer, unsure what to tell her. "Why do I get the feeling you're not planning on attending the dinner tonight?" I look at her with an unwavering gaze. It was just brought to my attention that I have somewhere far more important to be right now. She pinches her lips, her dark, analytical gaze tracing over me. I expect her to argue that there's no place more important than being here and serving the crown. It's about time you pulled that enormous head out of your arse. Creed laughs, but quickly covers it with a cough. I'm stunned. This is a woman who's always followed every etiquette rule and royal protocol to the T, never straying for so much as a second. "You are planning on going to America to patch things up with Nora?" "Yes," she says when I don't immediately respond. "Well, yes. Then what are you doing still standing here? You want me to go?" She huffs. "Of course I do. But you don't even like her." She rolls her eyes. "Oh, I like her fine. Truth be told, I didn't at first. It's always been unheard of for someone in your position to marry an outsider. And for love, no less. But I must admit, the girl certainly grew on me, especially when I tried to pay her off to walk away and she told me to shove it. You did what I blink repeatedly. Not sure what surprises me more, that Nora told my grandmother to shove it, or that my grandmother attempted to bribe her to get her to leave. Actually, now that I think about it, neither should shock me. It was simply a test. I needed to make sure she wanted this, that she wasn't just after you for your title. When she told me to shove it, and up my ass, no less, she says, emphasizing the word in an American accent, I knew she had the backbone required to survive in this life, not to mention quite a sense of humor. Sense of humor. The ghost of a smile plays on her thin lips. No one has ever spoken to me in such a disrespectful way as your fiancé has." Not only did she tell me to shove it, she also stormed off, but not before stopping to curtsy. I bark out a laugh, able to picture Nora doing that with striking clarity. It's one of the things that drew me to her from the beginning, her somewhat twisted and irreverent way of doing things to make a point. But last week, you encouraged her to leave. I argue, confused, made her think there was no other option. Why are you changing your mind now? I wave my hand toward the large windows to my right. Is it because the so-called circus has finally moved on? She pulls her brows together in contemplation, then says, "Walk with me for a minute, Gabriel." When she offers me her elbow, I loop my arm through it. Creed nods, retreating to my old room to give us privacy. We walk together in silence for several minutes, the only sound that of her evening dress rustling with her steps. Watching your grandfather in his role as crown prince, then king, I've learned quite a bit. One of the things that stuck out in my mind is that part of being an effective ruler is knowing when you're wrong and being able to admit your mistakes. When that interview aired and I heard that woman talk about Nora, I knew she was full of shite. Pardon my language. Trust me. I understand how difficult controlling your language can be when talking about her mother. She smiles, then faces forward once more. The problem with being groomed almost from birth to hopefully marry someone of royal blood is that we're not trained to think for ourselves. Once you enter this life, we're told what to do. If someone were to ask why these rules are in place, they'd say, "That's how it's always been." Precisely. We walk in silence, heading in the opposite direction than we need to be. Or at least my grandmother needs to be. For the first time in a long time, I know where my place is, and it's not here. These past few days, I haven't been able to stop thinking about the game of chess I played with Nora. She's quite a good player. For an amateur. Of course. As you know, I've always loved chess. When I was a little girl, I would watch my brothers and father play. I'd asked to learn several times, but my father refused to teach me, refused to allow me anywhere near the board, told me it wasn't something for girls, especially girls of noble background. I was supposed to study piano, practice my needlework, learn different languages, things like that to make myself more marketable to a husband. It's so antiquated, like something you'd hear about in the 1800s, not the 20th century, I remark, glancing at the centuries-old portraits of the royal family eavesdropping on our conversation. This was the 40s and 50s, so gender stereotypes were still happily embraced, particularly in upper-class society. When I asked why, I'm sure you can guess the response I was given, because that's the way it's always been. I say in an even voice with a hint of annoyance, "Precisely," but that didn't stop me from learning about the game in other ways. After everyone went to bed at night, I snuck into my father's study and read the books he had on chess, learned about strategy, about different techniques, but since my father didn't want me to play, I was never able to practice. She stops walking and faces me. When I married your grandfather and he shared his enthusiasm for chess with me, I was finally able to put everything I'd read into practice. But do you know what I learned? What's that? That you can study theory, can study past games, can study openings, mid-games, and end-games until your eyes bleed. But there's always a move you don't foresee, some things you can't prepare for. So yes, when that interview broke and I foresaw the potential ramifications to not only you, but also the monarchy if you were to come forward with the truth of that accident, I did what all the books tell you to do: protect your king at all costs. I failed to take into account what many chess masters say is infinitely more important than knowing the mechanics of chess. What makes the greats who they are? And what's that? She places her hand on my cheek. Intuition. My dear boy, some of the greatest chess matches of all time would have turned out differently if the players only went by the book, if they made their moves because that's how it's always been. She gives me a knowing look as she pulls back. By protecting the king, she begins, looping her arm through mine again as we stroll through the palace. What I really did was protect an antiquated way of life that is becoming more and more irrelevant. Looking back at how you and Nora bloomed as a couple made me finally realize that you two had the courage to question the establishment when they told you to do something simply because that's how it's always been done. You went against the rules and principles, and people loved you for it. When you sit down with Carly Hart, I have no doubt you'll have the same unwavering support. She turns, grabbing both my hands in hers. You will always have mine. Both of you. I apologize it took me so long. Thank you. Grandma, you're more than welcome. My dear boy. Now go. She fixes her expression into one of feigned severity. And don't come home without the mother of my great-grandson. I tilt my head. How do you know it's a boy? She kisses my cheek, then turns from me, heading back in the direction of the ballroom. It's just a feeling I get. Chapter 36. Nora, oh. Chloe. I breathe as Lincoln hands me the little pink-wrapped bundle. She's absolutely beautiful. I pull back the blanket, admiring little Eloise's chubby cheeks and fuzzy blonde hair. Bringing her closer, I nuzzle her as she sleeps, inhaling that addictive smell of a newborn. She just couldn't wait to make her appearance. Could she? She certainly couldn't. Chloe adjusts herself in the hospital bed. It's probably a good thing she came 3 weeks early, considering she's already 8 pounds. I don't think my body could have handled anything bigger. She looks up at Lincoln. I blame you for that. Leaning down, he feathers a kiss against her temple. She closes her eyes, basking in the touch, even from a few feet away. I can physically feel their love. It makes me long for the way Anderson would kiss me like that right before I drift off to sleep. Now, the only thing remotely close to that is when Izzy and Asher's dog, Treble, curls up next to me and licks my face, treating me to his stinky breath. Since I returned to New York nearly 2 weeks ago, Treble's been my shadow. Normally, he's indifferent to my presence, but instead of sleeping in his bed in Izzy and Asher's room, he sleeps with me every night, as if he can sense I need his comfort when the tears find me. And they do, especially at night, especially when I notice my stomach growing a little bigger each day and think about going through all of this alone. But as my friends have reminded me, I won't be alone. It takes a village to raise a child, and they've sworn to be my village, to be with me every step of the way. You did awesome, baby, Lincoln says. You deserve a gold star. Thanks, Professor. She jokes, but the true hero was the anesthesiologist. That epidural was heaven. I couldn't feel a damn thing until it wore off. Now my vagina is officially on fire. I roll my eyes. Thanks for the visual. Chloe, what are friends for knock? Knock, a sing-song voice says. I peek up from smothering Eloise with kisses to see Evie and Izzy standing in the doorway, a few bags in their hands. Do you have room for 2 more, Izzy asks. For you girls, always. Chloe answers. They barge into the hospital room that now feels on the small side. Visiting rules typically limit it to the spouse and 2 additional people, but since Izzy's a nurse here, still wearing her scrubs from her shift last night, I doubt anyone considers her a visitor. I'll let you all have some time together. Lincoln states, I could use a shower anyway. It's been a long night. Get ready, Izzy taunts. They're all going to be long nights from now on. If Eloise is as much of a handful as this one, he hitches a thumb toward Chloe. I have no doubt. He gives her one more sweet kiss before turning toward where I sit with Eloise. I stand, allowing him to take her from me. See you soon, baby girl. He kisses his daughter's forehead, lingering for a beat to breathe her in, then hands her back to me. I hold her in my arms once more, making sure to cradle her head. Then I look at Evie and Izzy, Who wants her next? Me, me, me. Evie waddles across the room, ready to pop any minute herself, at least before I need to pee again, which will probably be in mere seconds at the rate I've been going lately. She lowers herself into one of the chairs. Once she looks as comfortable as she can when 8 months pregnant. I hand her little Eloise. Much like me, she nuzzles her, inhaling that fresh baby smell. What's in the bags, Chloe asks. We brought some essentials, Izzy states, handing over a bag. When Lincoln called to say you'd gone into labor while at dinner and didn't have time to head to Rye, then back to the city again, we figured you might need a few important things, like nipple cream, breast pads, lotion for your hands. Chloe exhales in relief. You guys are a godsend. She grabs the lotion, smoothing it on her hands and arms. I swear, the air in hospitals is so damn dry. How do you feel? Izzy asks. Some irritation, but surprisingly okay. She's worth it. I beam at my friend, marveling at how far she's come since our freshman year of college. Back then, she ran as far away from anything remotely resembling any sort of committed relationship. Now she's officially a mother, something she swore she had no interest in being. It's amazing how meeting the right person can change your outlook on things. Soon we'll all be mothers, Evie, in a matter of weeks. Me in about 6 months, and Izzy a month or so after that. Having shared the news of her pregnancy with all of us last week, I'm happy for you. I squeeze her arm and give her a sincere look when the television catches my attention. I blink, my heart dropping into the pit of my stomach, all my focus drawn to the man on the screen. What is it? Chloe asks, noticing my expression. When she glances at the TV, she sucks in a breath. I'd purposefully avoided all social media and any cable television since returning to New York, not wanting to flip through the channels and stumble across some news story about me. Or, worse, Anderson. Can you turn that up? I ask softly, although part of me doesn't want to listen to whatever this is, especially when I notice Anderson sitting in the same chair as my mother did a few weeks ago during the interview that cost me everything. But it's not just Anderson who has my curiosity piqued. It's who's sitting beside him, Mary and Benjamin Copeland, Hunter's parents. Chloe grabs the remote, raising the volume. Thank you so much for being here today. Prince Gabriel. Carly's voice grates on my skin, especially considering the last interview of hers I saw. I have to admit, I was a bit surprised when my producer told me you'd agreed to sit down with me. Anderson laughs. I almost didn't. But then I realized something. And what's that? He looks from Carly to the camera. People may think he's talking to them, but I know that look. It's his Anderson look, the one reserved for me. Sometimes you need to break the rules, and being here today is breaking the rules for you. Giving an interview like this is generally frowned upon for members of the royal family. Sure, I've done a few interviews with the occasional magazine, but a live television interview is a big no-no. But I needed to set the record straight. Despite strong opinions from within the royal household that I continue to allow them to use Nora Tremblay as a sacrificial lamb of sorts. And what do you have to say about Nora Tremblay? As you're aware, her mother gave quite an explosive interview, claimed her daughter is a known manipulator, someone only out for money, voiced her suspicions that Nora had killed her ex-fiancé, making it look like an accident, as well as intentionally ended her pregnancy. I watch as Anderson fights to keep his anger in check. His jaw ticks, fists clench, muscles tighten, but he does his best to remain calm under pressure, offering Carly a smile that's a mixture of forced and annoyed. I didn't come on here today to badmouth anyone, although there's quite a bit I'd love to say to Dr. Harcourt if she ever dares show her face around me. I came here today to tell the truth about the woman I love, the woman I'm still desperate to call my wife, my queen. He turns back toward the camera, his eyes pleading. If she'll forgive me for being such a daft knob. I choke out a laugh through my tears, my heart brimming with an emotion I can't quite explain, a blend of love and forgiveness. and everything else that makes us who we are. Daft knob, Chloe asks. Stupid dickhead. She processes this for a moment, then nods. Sounds about right. The truth is, Nora had no involvement in the accident that took her fiancé's and unborn daughter's lives. How do you know that for certain? After Dr. Harcourt sat down with us, I did some digging of my own, spoke to some law enforcement professionals familiar with the accident. According to them, the police reports were inconclusive. There was no evidence that her version of events was true, but also no evidence it wasn't. I can't argue with that. She looks at Hunter's parents. Her fiancé, Hunter Copeland, was your son. You put out a reward for any information about a so-called Good Samaritan. Nora claimed pulled her from the car moments before it burst into flames, killing Hunter. Isn't that correct? Mary swallows hard, the loss of her son still affecting her. We did, to the tune of $12,000, but no one came forward. At first, we questioned why someone would want to remain quiet about it, especially with a reward of that amount of money. When she glances at Anderson, a grateful smile pulls on her lips. But it turns out the Good Samaritan truly had no need for the money. You can practically see the light bulb go off in Carly's head, her wide eyes returning to Anderson. It was you, she breathes. Then she quickly rummages through the pages of notes in front of her. Of course, it makes sense now. Your girlfriend at the time, Kendall Davies, died the same day in a hospital mere miles away from the scene of the accident. He nods. That's correct. I pulled Nora from the car. But that's not all I did. I suck in a breath and shake my head, my hand covering my mouth. No. No. Please, Anders, don't do this. But my pleas fall on deaf ears. I caused the crash. What is he doing? I mumbled to myself, heart hammering in my chest. Remember what you told us your first night back, Izzy asks, that there were too many obstacles between you. I meet her eyes. She crosses her arms over her chest. Well, Nora, it looks to me like he's removing those obstacles. Speechless. I look from her to Evie, who simply nods in agreement, then to Chloe, who does the same. When Anderson and I said goodbye, I thought that was it, that there was no path forward for us, that no one would allow him to do something like this, that they'd protect the king at all costs. That's what every chess rulebook would say to do. Then again, Anderson and I have never been a couple to follow the rules. What does this mean? I ask frantically. We can't tell you that, Chloe replies. But the one person who can is only a quick cab ride away. If I were you, I'd get moving. But you just had a baby. I protest. I can't leave you. She throws up her hands. Oh, shut up and get out of my room. I'm officially revoking your invitation to be here. I glance down at my wardrobe. It's not exactly anything remotely close to what I should be wearing if going to see Anderson. I'm fairly certain the royal household would lose its mind if they saw me in my jeans and Mets t-shirt, my unwashed hair in a messy bun, face mostly devoid of makeup, apart from a bit of powder and eyeliner around my eyes. This is how I've blended in this past week, how I've gotten away with no one recognizing me. People are used to seeing the future princess with her hair perfect and makeup impeccably applied. Without those things, no one gives me a second glance. Go! My three friends shout at the same time, Izzy pushing me out of the room. I pause as a few brief thoughts of inadequacy run through my mind. Can I really put myself through all of this again? Allow myself to have hope. Is Anderson worth it? When his voice fills the room as he shares our love story, I have my answer. He will always be worth it. I love you, girls, I say quickly, then whirl around, ignoring the demands from the nursing staff to slow down. But I can't. I race out of the building as quickly as I can. Luckily, there's always a line of cabs nearby, and I dart into one. Rockefeller Plaza, I say breathlessly. As fast as you can. The driver nods, starting his meter. He merges into traffic, then steals a glance at me in the rearview mirror. "Do you know who you look like, Grace Kelly?" I mutter under my breath, having gotten that most of my life. No. The American girl who was supposed to marry that European prince, but her mother sabotaged it, probably out of jealousy. I pull my hair out of the bun, allowing it to fall to my shoulders. I am that American, and that prince is being interviewed by Carly Hart right now, so I really need to get to Rockefeller Plaza as soon as possible. His eyes widen in surprise. Then he turns into the New York cab driver I know he is in his soul. "Of course, ma'am." He presses his foot on the gas, not paying much attention to the rules of the road. I pull my phone out of my purse and bring up a browser so I can keep watching the interview. For all I know, it may already be over. But when I tune into the live feed, I blow out a relieved breath to see Anderson still there. I turn up the volume, keeping my hand on the door handle to prevent myself from sliding all over the back seat as the car's tires squeal around a corner. I listen as Anderson shares how he was unaware he'd caused the crash until a year ago, how he'd experienced temporary blindness. What he now knows was a flare-up of his MS, which was undiagnosed until last year. Then he shares how we met, something that's been kept under wraps from the beginning, how he was on the brink of taking his own life after receiving his MS diagnosis, but saw me sitting in that Chicago diner. As he discloses how he felt when he realized who I was, a text pops up. "K.LeighRomance Team Nora is the top trending hashtag right now. This interview is going viral, more so than your mother's. Nora, people love your story, so go get your man. And don't give up until you have him." I beam, typing out a quick reply. "Nora, I don't plan on it. No more obstacles." I look up from my phone to see how close we are. There are still a few blocks to go, but with Midtown traffic what it is, it'll probably be quicker if I just run. I'll get out here. I reach into my purse and toss a $20 his way, then hastily push open the door, skirting through 3 lanes of traffic. People fill the sidewalk like ants. Rockefeller Plaza feeling so close but still so out of reach, like it gets farther away with every step I take. Now I know how Terry McKay felt in An Affair to Remember when she was on her way to the Empire State Building to see Nicky Ferrante after their agreed-upon 6-month separation. Nothing else mattered except getting to Nicky. Just like right now, nothing matters except getting to Anderson. When I'm 2 blocks away, I break into a jog, looking down at my phone every few seconds to see the interview still going. A few people look my way, seeming to recognize me. Some whisper and point. Others begin chanting my name as I run past. By the time I reach the plaza and can see the open windows of the studio on 49th Street, more and more people have joined in the chant. But I tune out most of them, all my attention focused on the large screens outside broadcasting the interview. Anderson's voice fills the area as he confesses how he didn't fight hard enough for me, how the reason wasn't because of my mother's interview, but because he thought he was saving me from a lifetime of living with a cripple. I stop dead in my tracks, his words hitting me hard, knocking the air from my lungs. "My God, you are such a bloody wanker," I muse, to which a few people around me laugh. Men usually are. "Sweetie," a woman says, encouraging me forward. I jog the last block to the studio, the growing crowd stopping to watch, their cell phones pointing in my direction, all of them cheering me on. It invigorates me, an infectious smile tugging on my lips. Days ago, I assumed I was hated. Maybe I never was. Maybe that was all in my head. Maybe I'd allowed my mother to manipulate me yet again. Shaking it off, I approach the windows of the studio. My pulse increases when I peek through them and see Anderson under the lights, his hair a bit more wayward than normal, a dusting of scruff on his face. Now that I'm here, I realize I haven't thought this through. He's on national television right now. What are the chances he'll see me out here? Do I try to find the stage door? I doubt they make it easily accessible. Instead, all I can do is send him a text message, then watch, and wait, and hope. "Are you really her?" a woman asks me, eyes wide in excitement. "Are you really the American princess?" I smile. "I am." The woman turns toward her friends. It really is her. The crowd cheers. Several people asking me to sign their poster boards, some of which were obviously made with Anderson in mind. I can only assume these women are big royal watchers. While I'm more than aware that signing autographs is frowned upon, I no longer have to live by those rules. So I happily agree to sign their posters, taking their marker and scrawling my name on each. In the background, I hear K.Leigh ask Anderson what he hopes to achieve by finally coming forward with the truth. Nothing. His voice booms in the plaza. But I couldn't sit aside and let the world think the worst of Nora. She doesn't deserve that. Her mother painted her in a horrible light. But that's not Nora. Maybe that's the Nora her mother wishes she were. But nothing could be further from the truth. "Why don't you share who Nora Tremblay is then?" K.Leigh suggests. "She's the love of my life," he answers without hesitation, his voice wavering slightly. Hunter's mother reaches for his hand and grabs it, giving him a reassuring smile. It melts my heart to see these people on the same stage together, connected by tragedy, but united for a bigger purpose: love. The frenzied sounds of the city seem to disappear as everyone's eyes remain glued to the giant screens overhead. It's as if the world has stopped spinning to listen to the elusive Crown Prince Gabriel give an interview and speak from the heart, something no royal has ever done. Nora Tremblay doesn't have a vindictive or manipulative bone in her body. She's one of the most honest and real people I've ever met. She doesn't pretend to be something she isn't, which I think was one of the hardest things for her about acclimating to life as a royal. Everyone tried to tell her how to act, how to think, how to dress. But Nora isn't the type of woman you can fit into a mold. She's warm, caring. He laughs to himself, his brilliant, blue eyes sparkling. This is a woman who saw a dog get hit by a car and made me pull over so we could take it to a vet, then paid for all the medical care he needed. With each word he speaks, the more impassioned he becomes, his determination unwavering. Whereas my mother could barely look K.Leigh in the eyes as she spouted her lies. Anderson's gaze remains resolute. This is a woman who has spent the past month taking the time to respond to each and every one of the hundreds upon hundreds of letters she's received from across the globe, not wanting anyone to think she doesn't care. I've never met any other royal who's done that, who's taken the time to interact with people. "That's Nora," Mary says from beside him, "always giving, never taking." Anderson gives her a small smile before returning his attention to K.Leigh as tears fall down my cheeks. This is a woman who spent nearly 4 hours in a pediatric oncology unit playing dress-up with a few of the young girls who are longtime patients there. She had other engagements that day, but that didn't matter to Nora. She didn't care about going to dinner with whatever celebrity we were supposed to be seeing that evening. All that mattered was staying with those kids as long as possible, making them happy. "I remember seeing that on the news," K.Leigh says. She certainly won over quite a few hearts with how she interacted with all those kids. His expression falls slightly, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down in a hard swallow, his facial muscles pinching. And this is a woman who suffered an immeasurable loss, who watched as the car holding the man she hoped to spend the rest of her life with went up in flames, who was then told their baby no longer had a heartbeat, who had to give birth knowing there would be no baby's cries greeting her. There would be nothing but silence. I feel an arm wrap around me and glance at one of the women through my tears. She squeezes me, offering an empathetic look, making me think she's no stranger to the pain of child loss. Despite all that, Anderson continues through his own emotions. Despite enduring something I couldn't even begin to fathom, she never lost hope, never gave up, which is why I'm not going to give up on her. I'm not. He stops abruptly, lips parting as he stares at something over K.Leigh's shoulder. I look away from the large screens and through the studio windows, wondering what caught his attention. Our gazes locking. He blinks. Once. Twice. as if worried he's hallucinating, as if he's been seeing me everywhere lately and wants to make sure I'm really here. Suddenly, he shoots to his feet, ripping his microphone off his shirt as he darts from the studio. At first, Carly's surprised, but when she peers out the windows, her eyes finding mine, she smiles. Then, being the opportunist she is, she waves a cameraman over. After a brief conversation, he takes off running, a camera in his hand. Suddenly, the shot of Carly transitions to the backstage area, Anderson darting through the maze of a studio, people scrambling out of his way. The crowd gets louder and louder as we watch him navigate through hallway after hallway, someone in a page's jacket escorting him out of the stage door. Finally, he steps into an alley before turning onto the plaza. Knowing exactly where he is, I spin, the crowd parting so I can get through, my legs not carrying me nearly as quickly as I'd like. After what feels like miles instead of mere yards, I turn the corner toward the plaza and skid to a stop when my eyes fall on Anderson for the first time in 2 weeks. To most, it may not seem that long. To me, it was a lifetime. His gaze focused on mine. He takes several slow steps toward me, chest rising and falling quickly, not a hint of the uneasiness he sometimes experiences when walking. When he reaches me, he stops and smiles. Hey, I manage to squeak out. An electricity buzzes in the air between us. But it's even more poignant than it's ever been. I thought you, Nora, he says at the same time, both of us laughing nervously. He treats me to that sly smile of his that's always been reserved just for me. You first. I thought you'd be arrested if you told the truth. That's why I left. Didn't want you to have to come forward and implicate yourself. His expression remains stoic. I know, but I couldn't let you take the blame anymore. Not for something I should have disclosed. He licks his lips, still standing a foot away. Do you want to know why I didn't fight harder for you when this all went down? I nod. Because of your MS? Yes, but there's a deeper reason. He steps toward me, but still doesn't touch me. Because I thought by saving you from a lifetime of being with someone like me, it would keep my conscience clear. So instead, I broke my heart. He averts his eyes as he draws in a deep breath. But how could I have a clear conscience when I allowed them to throw you to the wolves? He smiles sadly. So I did what I felt necessary to finally clear my conscience, once and for all. And what's that, I ask shakily. Went to the police, told them the truth. My shoulders fall as I squeeze my eyes shut, swallowing hard past the lump in my throat. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Will they be arresting you, I ask? Although I don't want him to answer. Don't think my heart can take it. His expression sobers, then a brilliant smile tugs on his mouth. No. I blink. No. He shakes his head. I did what the royal household didn't want me to do. Told the truth. Despite everything I shared, the DA declined to pursue charges. Apparently, his sister has MS, too, so he's more than aware of some of the complications. And thanks to the foundation I started last year, was able to receive treatment she otherwise couldn't afford. I blow out a small laugh. With great power comes great purpose. He nods, advancing toward me and cupping my cheeks in his hands. With great power comes great purpose. He repeats, slowly edging his lips toward mine. You are my purpose. I sigh, bringing my own hands to his face. And you're mine. He starts to erase the last remaining distance, but stops. Something catching his attention. Taking my right hand in his, he exhales a tiny breath when he sees his ring prominently displayed. You're still wearing it, he says in awe. I couldn't find the strength to take it off. Wasn't ready to admit we truly were over. I bring my hand back up to his face, and he melts into my touch. wasn't ready to give up my faith. Closing his eyes, he momentarily basks in my declaration. Then he loops an arm around my waist, yanking my body against his. I faintly make out people in the assembled crowd begging Anderson to just kiss me already. But I tune them out, all my focus on this man, on the promise of his kiss, on the promise of us. I'm going to kiss you now. And once I do, there's no walking away. I run my hands through his hair, mussing it up. Is that a promise? You bet your arse it is. Without a moment's hesitation, he covers my mouth. The entire plaza erupts in cheers, but I don't care about any of them. All I do care about is this man who just flipped the game on its head, who made a move everyone told him was foolish, a move that would cost him everything. He put the king at risk to protect his queen, and, in that one move, won everything he ever wanted. Epilogue. Anderson. The comforting aroma of cinnamon and apples clings to the walls of the palace, growing stronger the closer I get to the private living quarters. This has always been my favorite time of year. The grand halls decked out in Christmas decorations, everyone in a more joyful mood. It was a time of year my mother always made special. I remember spending hours in the kitchen with her frosting cookies, decorating gingerbread houses, rolling out dough for pies. The memories we made as a family over food was something I'd always look forward to all year long. As was the feeling I'd experienced when we went to a local shelter to donate all the food we'd made to those less fortunate than us. That all changed when my uncle died and we were ripped from the life we once knew. Then it changed again mere months later when my grandfather also passed away, making my father king and me heir apparent. There were rules about everything, from the way we styled our hair to the way we celebrated Christmas. There were no more hours spent in the kitchen baking and laughing with my mother. Instead, my family had to do what my grandfather did on Christmas, and his father before him. And so on, host a large dinner for the family and other important people on Christmas Eve, then attend midnight mass. All my mother wanted to do that first Christmas was bake cookies. She wasn't even allowed to step foot into the kitchen. That wasn't the way things were done around here. If they knew it would be one of her final Christmases, would they have granted her this wish, based on centuries of always doing things the same way? I'd assume not. As I step into the private residence, my heart warms at the unmistakable scent of cookies and pie, coupled with the sound of Christmas music and joyful voices. I shrug off my suit jacket and loosen my tie, tossing them onto the oversized sofa. I continue toward the sounds and smells, careful not to trip over the myriad of toys scattered around. Approaching the kitchen I had built when we moved in earlier this year. I pause, leaning against the door jamb, taking a moment to appreciate the scene in front of me, something I never imagined could be a reality years ago. But that was before I laid it all on the line for Nora, before I stopped living according to the rules, before I took a risk. After the interview where I shared the good, bad, and heartbreaking truth of Nora's and my story, people rallied behind us. Despite the powers that be predicting the truth would be disastrous not only for me, but also the royal family. Instead, the world fell in love with us all over again. I was once able to travel to certain countries without being noticed, particularly away from Europe. That was no longer the case. In the days following the interview, everyone wanted a piece of me, of Nora, of us, and not because of some scandal, but because of what our story embodied: forgiveness, redemption, love. Because I'd been so candid about everything we'd been through, people found us to be an extremely relatable couple. More importantly, they found me to be relatable as this country's future king. The voters overwhelmingly rejecting the constitutional referendum to limit the monarch's power. Since then, we've experienced a lot of changes, not only in our personal lives, but also in our royal lives. Nora's no longer merely Nora Tremblay, but Queen Nora Jean Wellingston of Belmont. And I'm now officially king, having been crowned a few weeks after our son's first birthday, who we named Hunter William Anderson Gabriel Wellingston. Naming our son after Nora's former fiancé hadn't even been on her radar, but I felt it a fitting tribute, not only to him, but also to our love. After all, it was Nora's journey to say goodbye to Hunter that brought her into my life. It won't bring him back, but maybe he'll look down upon us and smile at the thought that one day, a little boy named for him will become king. Even though little Hunter was born after we finally got married, with the new Royal Marriages Act and law of succession that was passed before his birth, he's considered a full heir. But since he's only a few months shy of his 3rd birthday, all he really cares about are trucks and trains. He doesn't realize who he is or what his future holds, and we're happy with that. He deserves the childhood I had before it was taken from me, deserves happiness, deserves to be a kid, not an heir. Papa Hunter squeals, looking up from where Nora stands over him at the kitchen island. She peeks up, too, a bit of frosting on her temple. The room more closely resembles a disaster area, mixing bowls containing the remnants of batter, cookie sheets and pans piled high in the sink, flour covering the kitchen island. It certainly isn't what one would expect a room in a palace to look like, and I love every bit of it. Hey, little man. I walk toward them and scoop Hunter off the step stool, giving him a big hug before pulling back. Have you been good for your mama? Yes. And how about your great-grandmimmy and grandpapa? Yes. Good. Because you know who's coming tonight? Santa, he replies with all the enthusiasm of a little boy. That's right. I press one last kiss to his cheek, then place his feet back onto the floor, tousling his blonde hair before turning my attention to Nora. Hey, gorgeous. Hey, yourself, she responds, lifting herself onto her toes and brushing her mouth against mine. How was your day? Better now. I hook an arm around her waist, pulling her tighter against me. Much better now. I press my lips more firmly against hers, coaxing her mouth open so I can have a taste of her before our home is overrun with friends and family. But this year, there won't be a formal dinner at the palace to celebrate the holiday. No putting on a show for the people of this country. Instead, it'll be a private, low-key affair. Only close friends and family, like my mother wanted, like Christmas should be. Kiss, 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 kiss. Hunter exclaims. They sure do that a lot, don't they? We pull back, darting our eyes toward the doorway to see Esme, my father, and grandmother. Unlike previous years when Christmas was a formal affair and everyone would be dressed to impress, it'll be more casual this year. Much more casual. Our instructions were for everyone to wear an ugly Christmas sweater. My father probably went as conservative as possible, opting for a red sweater with the infamous leg lamp from A Christmas Story on it. Esme, being the snarky and irreverent woman I love, wears a black sweater that says, "Feel the joy," 2 red gloves covering her chest. But I think my grandmother actually wins for best sweater. Or at least best execution. Leaves and ivy, along with a few sleigh bells, cover the shoulders and arms. On the front are what appears to be reindeer footsteps in the snow. You guys look great, Nora exclaims. Especially you, Grandma. You get it, she asks. Of course Grandma got run over by a reindeer. It's genius. I have to admit, it was quite fun making this. I'm glad. I watched Nora and my grandmother, the warmth and affection both women have for each other obvious. It's no secret Nora never had a strong mother figure in her life, but my grandmother seems to have become that for her, the two often spending hours playing chess in the study. When I first brought Nora here and my grandmother was so against the idea of us together, I never could have imagined that possibility. However, my grandmother has relaxed quite a bit over the past few years. She now cares less and less about her role as Queen Mother, something that used to be her sole identity, something she clung to out of fear that if she didn't, she'd cease to exist. Not anymore. Now, her focus is little Hunter. Truthfully, I think she quite likes not following every little rule and requirement of royal protocol anymore. It gives her freedom to do things she actually wants, to follow her passions. While she can still be a stickler for decorum and etiquette every so often, she's let go of certain traditions that only serve to keep the idea of the royal family antiquated. My goal as king has been to allow us to be seen as a modern family, one that's no longer resistant to change. As for Nora's mother, she finally got what was coming to her, something that should have happened ages ago. After my interview, her license to practice psychiatry was revoked. Not only did she lose her means of making a living, but when her latest divorce was finalized, the judge refused to award her alimony. With no other way to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to, she reached out to Nora, pretending to be the caring mother she'd never been. So Nora bestowed the same compassion on her that she'd shown Nora all her life, absolutely none. Last I heard, she's working as a cashier at some grocery store in Florida and living in a rundown trailer park. As my mother once said, karma is like a rubber band. You can only stretch it so far before it comes back and smacks you in the face. Nora's mother has finally gotten the smack in the face she's always deserved. Why don't you all head into the living room? I suggest. I just need to change. Then I'll be right down. I give Nora a kiss on the cheek and tousle Hunter's hair before dashing up to our bedroom. Thanks to the infusion treatments I've started, I can dash most days. Some are still better than others. There are times I do need to use a cane to help me get around. I've finally accepted my diagnosis, though I thought I had years ago, but there was still quite a bit of denial at play, especially when I refused to try a different treatment plan and constantly pushed myself to my limits just to prove to everyone I could do things, that there was nothing wrong with me. Because of that, I almost lost Nora. Never again. I may have MS, but MS doesn't have me. I won't let it. As I slide on my jeans, a knock sounds. I glance toward the door. Come on in. Hey. Esme peeks her head in. Do you have a minute? I nod subtly. Sure. She walks in and closes the door behind her, then sits on the reading chair in the corner. I saw who you've assigned to be on the security detail for my diplomatic trip in January. I have no control over who's assigned to you. Esme, you know that. That decision comes from the General of the Royal Guard and is based on who's best at what they do. She smiles, but it feels forced. That may be true, but you have the power to override his decisions, especially when your chief protection officer is being pulled from your detail. I'm just looking out for your safety, Anders, and I appreciate that, but I'm not doing any traveling next month, which is why you're taking this trip in my place. I have some infusion treatments and need to stay in the country while I undergo those. Creed's skills will be wasted if he's forced to remain here doing absolutely nothing. Your travels will take you to some places with fairly high crime rates. There's no one I'd trust with your safety more than Creed. So I'm sorry, he's staying on your detail. But no, Esme, I understand why that would make you uncomfortable, and I'm sorry if it does. It's not like he'll be sharing a room with you. He's there to protect you. That's it. And maybe you can both use this as an opportunity to clear the air. I'm still with Marius, I know. And I'm also aware you've talked about marriage. Her eyes widen, obviously not expecting this. But I'm king now. As such, I have to approve her marriage, which I'll do no matter who she wants to marry. I'd never come between my sister and the person she loves, not like the royal household nearly came between Nora and me. But those days are over. All members of the old guard, as I put it, no longer part of the royal household. Immediately following Nora's and my return to Belmont, my father cleaned house, starting at the top with Dalton Peel, who he discovered had actually paid Nora's mother quite a large sum of money to give the interview that nearly cost us everything. Instead, he brought on people who could modernize the crown, make it relevant even in this day. I want you to be happy. Esme, I tell her. And if Marius makes you happy, great. But you've been here before, been with someone for years, developed a relationship. even talked about getting married, only to change your mind when he kneeled in front of you with a ring. At some point, you need to address what's causing you to constantly push away every man when you're on the brink of getting engaged or married. She peers into my eyes. I expect a little more pushback from her. Instead, a smile spreads across her face before she bursts out laughing. What? She shakes her head. It's really bloody difficult to take you seriously right now. I look in the mirror at my sweater, seeing a knitting of Jesus in a birthday hat, a noisemaker in his mouth. Birthday boy, she remarks, reading the print on my sweater. What? Technically, he is. Come on. She stands and loops her arm through mine, leading me from the bedroom. Let's get back to the party. Wait until you see Nora's sweater. You'll love it. Why did you help her with it? And if I did, she waggles her brows. I glance at her sweater. I should probably be scared. Oh, you definitely should. But I think you'll appreciate it even more. We continue down the stairs and toward the living room, the sound of laughter filling the halls, turning this once cold, empty palace into an actual home. Just before we're about to join our family for our Christmas Eve celebration, Esme stops me. Merry Christmas. Anders. Joyeux Noël. Esme. I wrap her in my arms, kissing her cheek. Then I pull back, leading her into the living room. My father and grandmother sit on the couch with Hunter, doting on him, treating him like the toddler he is, not the future king. A large tree stands tall in front of the windows, the plaza outside covered with a fresh coating of snow. Unlike years past when the tree in the private residence was designed by professionals, Nora, Hunter, and I decorated this ourselves with ornaments the palace receives from various schools throughout the country, as well as personal ones, Hunter's handprint, a piece of cement from Route 66 I'd picked up, and even that first ultrasound photo of Hunter when he was still little pickle. That's when I noticed something I hadn't before. Another framed photo just below Hunter's first ultrasound. It's nearly identical to that one, except for one very important detail. Slowly, I make my way across the room, eyes focused on the tree. The world seems to go quiet as everyone watches me. I unhook the ornament from the branch, squinting as I try to make sense out of what I'm looking at. I glance from this black and white picture to the one of Hunter, then back again, my heart hammering in my chest. Congrats, Daddy, Nora murmurs from behind me. I whirl around to see her wearing a Christmas sweater of an oven over her stomach, but instead of only one gingerbread man inside, there are two. Are you telling me? I swallow hard. I guess we're overachievers. We've got the air. But now we're about to have two spares. My eyes widen as I sweep her into my embrace, kissing her deeply, wishing I could show her in some other way how much I love and appreciate all she's done for me. Twins, I say, a mixture between a statement and a question. Twins, she confirms. Two at the same time. That's usually how twins work. Gabriel, dear, my grandmother interjects with a smile. I shake my head, pulling Nora back to me once more. This may be the best Christmas gift I've ever received. I'm sorry the rest of the girls weren't able to be here to celebrate and share in the news. They'll be here for New Year's. I won't be able to really celebrate. But it's okay. All I care about is having time with my friends. That's celebration enough. And so is this. What she places her hand over her stomach. Our growing family. I kiss her again, pulling away when I feel a familiar tug on my shirt. Mama has cookies in her belly. Hunter points at Nora's sweater. She sure does. Bud, do you know what that means, Mama likes cookies? That's one way of putting it, Esme mutters under her breath, to which everyone chuckles. No, it means you're going to be a big brother. He looks between us for a beat, seemingly deep in thought. Then his expression brightens. Okay, can we open presents now? I blow out a laugh, marveling at how easygoing he is. Of course. As I gaze around the living room at a scene I could have never imagined a few years ago, my heart expands, much like the Grinch's did when he discovered the true meaning of Christmas. When Nora forgave me after learning the truth of the role I played in the car accident that took her fiancé and unborn child from her, I thought I knew what true love was. When she agreed to move her world for me and acclimate to a life no one can adequately prepare for, I fell even more in love with her. Then even more when we stood in front of God and all our friends and family, promising to cherish each other the rest of our lives. But those are the big moments. Love is also found in the small moments. In my opinion, those are infinitely more important. I find pieces of our love sprinkled throughout our history. In the memory of her smile as I pulled her hair free of her ponytail as we drove along Route 66 together as two strangers. In the memory of spending a lazy Sunday at Central Park, lounging in the grass as we talked about everything and nothing at the same time. And now, as she looks up at me with more admiration than I think I deserve, I remember what Esme told me when I first grappled with my feelings for Nora. Maybe it won't work out, but maybe seeing if it does will be the exact adventure you need to remind you what it's like to fly. There's no doubt in my mind that my time with Nora so far has been the adventure of a lifetime. I have a feeling the adventure is just beginning. London. The butterfly effect in chaos theory states that sometimes insignificant events bring about extensive change, either good or bad. It's the notion that a butterfly can flap its wings, triggering a chain of events that will lead to a massive tsunami, forever altering the face of the earth and the lives of those affected. I've always been intrigued by the concept that a seemingly innocuous and everyday event could have major consequences. What would have happened if Archduke Ferdinand had taken a different route through Sarajevo, thwarting a young nationalist's assassination attempt, which eventually led to the start of World War I? Would some other event have been the catalyst for it? The world just a ticking time bomb? Or would society have continued living in peace? What would have happened had the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna not rejected Adolf Hitler's application to attend, twice? Would he have taken a different path, saving the world from his tyranny and hate? And what would have happened if I hadn't fallen in that crosswalk on a rainy day in Atlanta? Would I have carried on with my life, content with my relatively solitary existence? Or would our paths have crossed anyway, starting a series of events I never could have predicted in my wildest imagination? I'll never know. Because I did fall in that crosswalk. Our paths did cross. Our lives did intersect. One seemingly insignificant event. One meeting most people wouldn't think twice about, but one event that eventually altered my entire world. Don't tell me you got the axe. I pull myself away from packing the few personal items from my cubicle at the interior design firm I've called home the past few years. Looking up, I meet Justine's dark gaze, her expression awash with sympathy. I did. Oh. London. Arms extended. She approaches, wrapping me in a hug. I'm so sorry. It's okay. I lean back, giving her a reassuring smile. It was bound to happen when they brought in the efficiency experts. I shrug, swallowing past the lump in my throat. It doesn't matter how inevitable today was. It still hurts. I'm one of the last hires. Not to mention I have the least experience out of everyone on the team. Justine rolls her eyes, flipping a few blonde waves over her shoulder. Experience and talent are two different things. You can have years of experience but be a talentless hack. She edges closer, lowering her voice, like half the people here. It's okay. I'm okay. Or at least I will be after I drown myself in a bottle of wine later. That's my girl. She squeezes my bicep. On a dejected sigh, I step away, scanning my cubicle, which is now devoid of anything personal, except one. Walking to the corner of my desk, I grab the small, framed photo of my parents and me from years ago, 20 years to be exact. This was the last picture taken of us as a family before my mother was killed on this very date. I think that's why losing my job on today of all days has hit me so hard. Not because I'm now unemployed, but because of all the horrible memories associated with this day. Just once. I'd love to have a positive memory of June 3rd. Well, I guess that's it. I say after placing the photo into my bag. It won't be the same without you here. But I believe this is the best thing for you. You're too talented to work here. I felt it the first time we met. You're destined for greater things than designing kitchens and bathrooms in accordance with what our client saw on the latest HGTV show. I laugh. Ain't that the truth? She pulls me in for one more hug before releasing me. Drinks soon. Absolutely. I hold her gaze another moment before turning and making my way through the cubicle-filled space for the last time. Sympathetic smiles greet me as I pass. Other designers in tears as they pack up their own cubicles. I suppose I should feel lucky I'd only been here a few years before getting fired. Some worked here for 10 or 15 years, have families to support, college educations to pay for. I don't. I only have myself. Once I reach the elevator, I press the down button. A car arrives almost immediately, and I hurry inside. When the doors close, I expel a breath, thankful to be alone at last. I lean against the wall, looking up at the fluorescent lights in the ceiling. Maybe Justine is right. Maybe I'm destined for bigger things than regurgitating the same design over and over. I've always felt my creativity stunted here. Maybe this is my chance to go out on my own, start my own firm, do what I want. My head held high, and a renewed outlook filling me. I step out of the elevator and into the lobby, waving to the guard sitting at the security desk. You, too, Oliver asks. Me, too. I respond, my lips quirking into a half-hearted smile. Sorry to hear that. Lolo, he says in his deep baritone, using the nickname he made up for me years ago. It's okay. You should know by now I'm a fighter. I know. I've seen the photos of you in boxing gloves on your Instagram. There's no doubt in my mind you'll get through this. Thanks. Noticing a flicker, I glance over his shoulder to one of the half-dozen monitors spread out in front of him, most of them containing surveillance from various parts of the building. But the far one is connected to the computer, a news website showing a live broadcast from a church I know intimately. Do you remember that happening, Oliver inquires, noticing my gaze drawn to the screen? I swallow hard at the split-screen feed, one side showing the memorial currently underway, the other displaying archive footage of white sheet-covered bodies being rolled out on stretchers. I should have expected a few news outlets to cover the 20th anniversary of the shooting. It was a pretty big deal back then. The first mass shooting since Columbine, this time at a church. It still catches me off guard. Though, I didn't think I'd see coverage of it here in Atlanta when it happened in Virginia. Or maybe I just hoped I wouldn't. It was horrific. Some known white supremacist walked into the church during a choir rehearsal and opened fire, killed 12 people, including the pastor's wife. Luckily, the pastor and their daughter were elsewhere in the church and escaped. Sawyer Ross was one of the survivors, too. Do you know who that is? That television preacher and civil rights activist? I keep my expression even. I've heard of him. It was all over the news. Oliver continues, not picking up on my unease. Such a tragedy, a senseless act of hate. But you're too young to probably remember. I nod. Yeah. I turn my attention from the screen, peering out the large floor-to-ceiling windows at the torrential downpour covering the streets. Pretty nasty weather, isn't it? Got to love Atlanta in the summer, I muse, shifting through my bag for my umbrella. But it's not there. Just my luck. When I don't need it, I practically trip over the damn thing. When I do, it's nowhere to be found. Take mine, Oliver offers, grabbing the umbrella from the side of his desk. That's okay. The garage isn't far. Are you sure? He tilts his head. I don't mind. You can just drop it back to me tomorrow on your way into... He trails off, realizing I won't be back tomorrow. I'll be fine. See you around. I continue past him, needing to get as far away from any mention of the infamous Virginia church shooting as possible. Approaching the front doors, I hesitate when I see the rain is more like a waterfall, coming down fast and hard, the angry wind whipping around. I doubt even an umbrella will help in this weather. Maybe I should just wait for the storm to pass, sit with Oliver for a while. He wouldn't mind. I've done it before. But then I make out the familiar sound of my father's voice coming from the coverage of the memorial. I can't stomach watching that. Can't face the reminder of everything I lost. Not only when that gunman opened fire in the church, but also 5 years ago when my own father refused to stand up for me at a time I needed him most. You can do this, I murmur to myself, then open the door and step onto the sidewalk. A gusty wind blows back at me, causing me to lose my balance. I use the side of the building to steady myself, briefly reconsidering this decision, but eventually power through. I rush down the sidewalk as fast as I can in my heels. The rain pelts me from all angles, scraping against my face, drenching my jeans and blouse. I hold my breath, as if that will make the rain not as bad. But nothing will help against the deluge coating the city. Fighting to lift my head, I concentrate on the crosswalk signal, seeing the countdown at 8 seconds. I gauge the distance to it, not wanting to be stuck at a busy intersection in downtown Atlanta for several minutes in this downpour. There's no way I'll make it to the other side in time, but I convince myself it will be okay, that after my crappy day, something has to go my way. So instead of playing it safe, I quicken my pace. The few yards to the corner seem to expand with every passing second, the crosswalk feeling like it gets farther away with each step. But I don't give up, powering through the wind and rain, not caring I must look like a sight with my tight, brown curls plastered to my forehead and cheeks. I step onto the street, my sole focus the sidewalk opposite the 4-lane road, praying all the drivers show me some sympathy and don't gun the gas the second the light turns green. As I scurry along, my heel slips on the slick pavement, legs giving out beneath me. Time seems to slow as my body is propelled up before my back and head hit the pavement with a hard thump. Disoriented, I struggle to capture a breath, the force of my fall knocking the wind out of me. My head and back ache, making movement difficult. I manage to slowly turn my head, feeling like I'm in some sort of dream world as I watch a white pickup truck barrel toward me. My brain tells my muscles to move, but they're frozen, unable to obey a simple command. Even though I'm seconds from being hit by someone who can't see anything in this rain, you know how people claim they see their entire life flash before them just before they think they're about to die? Well, that's what happens to me. When I squeeze my eyes shut, muttering the words to prayers I haven't said in years, my life flashes before me. It's almost like a slow-motion rewind, taking me from the present and through my early years. Some moments fill me with anger, others with regret, and still others with love. When my mother's affectionate dark eyes flash before mine, I somehow find solace that, even if the worst happens, I'll see her soon. Peace fills me, making me feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience, that I'm flying. Then a loud horn blares, pulling me back to the present. I instinctively tear my eyes open, expecting to still be on that asphalt, except I'm not. I am flying. 2 strong arms cradling me against the storm. Weston. Adrenaline heats my veins as I dart across the busy crosswalk, breathing hard, the rain and wind thundering in my ears. The woman's weight barely registers as I run to the safety of the coffee shop where I'd witnessed her fall. Other patrons stare at me like I'm crazy for risking my life to help a stranger. But I didn't even think about that when I noticed her go down. all I saw was a woman who needed help. My grandparents taught me to never stand aside when someone is in need, so I didn't, pushing past bystanders, whose only reaction to this woman's fall was to grab their phones and film it. I returned to my table and carefully set her into a chair, then sit beside her. The sound of grinding coffee beans and conversation fills the space, a stark contrast to the pounding of my heart from mere seconds ago. The outside world slowly returning to my awareness as rainwater drips from my body. "Are you okay?" I ask, scanning her frame, looking for any sign of injury. I peer into her eyes, making sure her pupils aren't dilated. I don't think I saw her hit her head, but I can't be certain in this weather. She blinks, still disoriented. She trails off, her teeth chattering. A chill washes over me, and I glance up to see we're directly below an air vent. Normally, it's refreshing compared to the stagnant humidity, but with our clothes soaked, it only serves to make its effects more prominent. "Can you get me a green tea? Please," I call out to the barista behind the counter. She nods and jumps into action, smiling in thanks. I return my attention to the woman, her entire body trembling. "You're shivering." Instinctively, I take her hands between mine and squeeze, trying to warm her the best I can without coming off like a creep. "Thank you," she finally manages to say in a soft voice that seems to lack the typical southern drawl I hear from people who've lived here most of their lives. Like me. If you didn't help me, I saw you go down." I glance out the window to the left. When the light turned green, I shake my head, hating to think what would have happened if I hadn't chosen that precise moment to glance up from my phone to see her slip and land on her back. I've suffered falls like that. Know how they can knock the wind right out of you. It's no wonder she was struggling to pull herself together in time to get out of the way of traffic. The barista comes to our table and sets down a steaming cup. "Here you go." "Thanks." I release her hands and slide the tea toward her. "Drink. The green tea should warm you up and help calm your nerves." I push out a laugh, running my fingers through my dark, rain-drenched hair. It usually helps me. She wraps her dainty hands around the cup and lifts it to her mouth, blowing on it before taking a sip. It helps me too. That, and a shot of whiskey or tequila. I chuckle. I'd probably want more than a shot if I were you. What are you doing out in this weather in the first place? And without an umbrella? She sets the cup on the table. I was heading to my car. It's parked in the garage next door. And you were in such a rush that you couldn't wait for the storm to pass. She sighs. I was just fired. The last thing I wanted was to spend any more time than necessary at my office. My smile wavers. I'm sorry. At this point, I'm used to it. June 3rd is a notoriously horrible day for me. It makes sense that not only did I lose my job, but I also almost got flattened by a truck. Alexander and the Terrible. Horrible. No good. Very bad day has nothing on me. I remember that book. My muscles relax as I recall my childhood memories. My Mima used to read it to me whenever I complained I was having a bad day. Said sometimes all we need is a little perspective to realize things aren't as bad as they seem. She tilts her head to the side. Do you think I just need perspective? I pause, leaning back in my chair as I ponder my response, which gives me the opportunity to fully drink in her appearance. Tight curls frame her oval face, dark, soulful eyes, plump, heart-shaped lips, and a smattering of freckles running across the brown skin of her nose. No, I finally say, shaking my head. I don't think you need perspective. Do you remember the other, and in my opinion, more important lesson in that book? What's that? She furrows her brow, no longer shivering. Instead, she angles toward me, completely engaged in our conversation as if we're old friends, not the strangers we are. That even if things seem pretty bad, they can only get better. so you may be having a shitty day. But when you reach rock bottom, things can only go up. I wink. You know. She pinches her lips together as a contemplative look crosses her face. I think they already are. Is that right? If you hadn't helped me, they'd probably be scraping my body off the pavement right now. So thank you. She grabs her cup once more, raising it in a toast before sipping her tea. I just did what any reasonable human would when seeing a person in need. That's not entirely true. These days, most people only care about themselves. Look around you. She gestures at the other tables. I survey the dozen or so patrons seeking shelter from the rain. They barely take the time to look up from their cell phones, too focused on how many likes they got on their latest Instagram post or story. Then I guess I'm not most people. I guess you're not. I extend my hand toward her. I'm Weston, or Wes. She studies it cautiously, then places hers in mine. London, London. My mouth tests how her name rolls off my tongue as I wrap my fingers around her delicate skin. Like the city custom dictates, I should drop my hold on her, but a larger force keeps my hand entwined with hers. Yes, but spelled with a Y. Well, London with a Y. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I hold her gaze another moment, my pointer finger caressing the calluses on her palm, which only intrigues me even more. Most women I know wouldn't be caught dead with so much as a scrape on their hands. But it's obvious London has no problem getting her hands dirty, so to speak. I'm about to ask about the job she just lost when she abruptly yanks her hand from mine and shoots to her feet. I should go. Go I stand, my 6'2" frame towering over her by at least a half foot, making me estimate her to be around 5'8". I glance out the window to see the downpour hasn't let up at all. It's still raining. I'll be fine. Reaching into her wallet, she pulls out a $5 bill. Here. She shoves it at me. For the tea. I wave her off. That's not necessary. I prefer not having any debts. I can't repay you for saving my ass, as it were, but I can repay you for the tea. So here. She sets the bill on the table. Take it, or put it in the tip jar. Better yet, give it to Omar. I scrunch my brows, unsure I heard her correctly. Omar. The homeless guy who's always hanging out by the exit of the garage. I don't care what you end up doing with the money. At least it will be off my tab. This woman becomes more intriguing with every second. Since I moved back to Atlanta from Boston 2 years ago, not one person has admitted to knowing the name of the homeless guy I buy coffee and food for whenever I can. He's the reason I came down to the coffee shop today, to get him something to keep him warm in this rain. Let me at least walk you. I suggest, make sure you get to your car safely. She shakes her head, retreating from me and toward the front door. I appreciate the offer, but it's not necessary. Luckily, there are no more unruly crosswalks between here and the garage. She presses her palm against the door, about to push it open. Wait, I call out, my outburst surprising even me. She stops, glancing over her shoulder, a single brow raised. Can I get your phone number? The entire shop goes silent, my questions seeming to echo. I have no idea what came over me. This is extremely out of character for me. It's almost like some other force has taken over, urging me to act in a way I've fought for years now. And for good reason. I flounder. Words escaping me now that I have her attention, as well as the attention of everyone else here. To check on you. My voice comes out assured, more assured than I feel inside. I'd feel better if I can at least text to make sure you got home okay. Her gaze shifts from me as she chews on her lower lip. It's just a phone number, but by the indecision filling the lines of her face, you'd think I asked her to pick her favorite Beatle or what 3 movies she'd take if she were abandoned on a deserted island. Finally, she nods and reaches into her purse, shifting the contents around before retrieving a business card and handing it to me. London Living. I read, I upcycle furniture, she explains. I find pieces that are in really bad shape but still have good bones and give them a second chance at life. That would explain the calluses. I'm familiar with the process. I tell her, taking in the website and email, both of which have London's name displayed prominently on it. I'm assuming this is not the job you got fired from earlier. No. She pushes out a nervous laugh. It's kind of hard to fire me from my own company. I imagine so. We share another look as her lips curve up into a small smile. It's not forced or fake, as is the case with so many other women I'm surrounded by. It's natural, refreshing, breathtaking. In a world full of roses, she's a sunflower, unique and filled with light. She opens her mouth, as if wanting to say something. Instead, she takes a step back, becoming overtly professional, spine stiff, shoulders straight. Thanks again, Weston. She turns, about to walk out of the shop when I call out to her once more. I hope tomorrow is better than today. She stops, her hand on the door. She doesn't look back at me, but she doesn't run away, either. Although, I must confess, I continue, my voice low. In my book, it will be really difficult for tomorrow to be better than today, I whisper. Why's that? She squeaks out, glancing over her shoulder, eyes locking with mine. Because I met a beautiful woman. I smirk, hoping I don't come off as overly cocky or arrogant. If you ask me, it's going to be next to impossible to top that. She doesn't move for several moments. Then she pushes open the door and hurries down the sidewalk, ducking into the garage, blowing out a breath as I remind myself why it's not worth it to take a risk on a beautiful woman I meet in a coffee shop. I make my way back to the counter, everyone in the shop pretending to return to their business. I'm about to hand the barista the bill London gave me, then stop myself, pulling out my wallet and using my own money to cover the tea, heading back to my table. I grab the coffee in Danish. I dash out of the shop, fighting against the wind and rain until I reach the corner where Omar sits huddled under an awning, keeping himself as dry as possible. Here you go, buddy, with a smile. I hand him the coffee in Danish, almost able to hear my mother's admonition that I'm only encouraging him to keep mooching off hardworking people by giving him food, coffee, and the occasional self-care items. It's laughable, considering my mother wouldn't know what a hard day's work looked like if it smacked her in the face. For a woman who claims to devote all her free time to charity, she doesn't have a charitable bone in her body, unless the media is covering it. But I've learned that the most fulfilling acts of charity are the ones you do out of the goodness of your heart, not for accolades or commendation, which is why I don't mind helping Omar, and a little something extra in case you get hungry later. I reach into my pocket, about to give him the bill London left, but hand him a 20 instead. The world needs more people like you, he responds in a gruff voice, just doing the best I can. He nods as he sips the coffee, appreciation covering his expression. I suppose that's all we can do, isn't it? At the sound of a car pulling out of the garage, I look up, my lips curving when I see a dark SUV, London behind the wheel. My gaze follows it as she turns onto the street. When she comes to a red light, she glances over, her expression widening in surprise when she notices me talking to Omar. He lifts his coffee, waving at London as the light turns green and she follows the flow of traffic down the street. I suppose it is, I murmur, watching until her car disappears from view. Acknowledgements. Writing acknowledgements is always difficult. It's always the last thing I do before publishing. Although if I'm cutting it close to deadline, I sometimes have another round of editing or proofreading to do as well. In my mind, writing acknowledgements means saying goodbye to the characters in this story, which I always hate doing, but it's even more difficult in the final book of a series. I started this journey with this group of women back in 2018. That was the year I'd published both my Inferno series and the Redemption duet, both angst-filled emotionally driven stories. Whenever I write a lot of heavy books, I feel the need to write something lighter, which was when I got the idea to finally write one of my favorite tropes to read, a fake relationship romance. When I sat down to write Dating Games, which was actually titled Dear Gracie at the time, I never could have imagined it would turn into this series. It was just supposed to be a standalone romantic comedy before I switched gears to write my first interracial romance in Possession, a palate cleanser, more or less. But this group of women had different plans for me, and I'm so glad they did. In the past 2.5 years, they've become close friends. I know I probably sound crazy, since they're all products of my imagination, but they've been with me these past several years. Hell, writing Anderson and Nora's journey together on Route 66 helped me through quarantine, being able to travel vicariously through them. So it's with a very heavy heart that I say goodbye to this incredible group of women so I can focus on other stories that need to be told. Like Esme and Creed's story, stay tuned. It's coming next year. With that being said, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the people who helped me behind the scenes. First and foremost, a huge thanks to my husband, who supported me in this author world since day one, and big thanks for helping me come up with the angle of Nora's mother's interview. It really turned the book around for me when I'd hit a wall, so to speak. On that same note, a big thanks to little Miss Harper Leigh, who makes me laugh and smile every day. To my wonderful PA, Melissa Crump. I couldn't do any of this without your unwavering love and support. Thanks for keeping this train on the tracks. To my fantastic beta readers, Melissa, Stacy, and Vicky. Thanks for reading and offering your feedback on this story. Sorry about all the angst. Actually, I'm not. You should be used to this by now. To my amazing editor, Kim Young. Thanks for always treating my manuscripts with care. You're the only one I trust to work on my babies. To my girl, A.D. Justice. This author world would suck without you in it. Thanks for always being there for me. To my review team. Thanks for always taking the time to read and review my work. Your support means the world to me. To my reader group. Thanks for giving me a place to go when I need a break from writing and the real world. And last but not least, a big thank you to you, my amazing readers. Whether this is your first K.LeighRomance book or you've read all of them, I'm so grateful you took a chance on my stories. I still can't believe this is my life, but I'm eternally grateful you've all made it possible for me to write stories for a living. And I have lots more stories planned, so stay tuned. Love and peace. Ta K.